US30, which is also known as the Dow Jones Index, and we are on the weekly chart. And a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about how we have this very nice M structure over here, if I can just draw it, which had a neckline more or less at that point. And what we had anticipated was that price or the market would come back to the neckline to test it. And at this spot over here is where we would have looked for those potential selling opportunities to around this area. And why do I say this area? That is because this is exactly where the pattern actually started, and ideally we would have loved to see the market push further down to around this level. However, having said that, we can see that when price came back to the neckline to test it, the neckline failed to hold the market, and we saw the market push further up to around that zone, right? Having said that, I believe that long term chances are that we are still going to see price move further down to around this level over here, right? Because if you actually pay attention to what's happening on the weekly chart, we can see that we have this triangle over here, or rather this channel over here, and we can see also that at this point in time we seem to be having what seems to be a third rejection at that point. And what this means, guys, is that chances are that we will see the market at least push further down to around this level at the very least. However, having said that, I would love to see price or the market push further down to around this level, which is in line with the zone over here, which is exactly where this very nice M structure started. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. Anyway, let's proceed. What I'm gonna do, guys, is just add a channel on the weekly chart at this point over here. Just bear with me, guys. There we go, more or less. Right, and then from here what I'm going to do, guys, is just head down to the daily chart, and let's have a look on the daily chart and see what exactly is happening. On the daily chart, I'm just going to fix my daily channel. Just bear with me, guys. There we go, more or less. Right, so in regards to the daily chart, we can see, guys, that we still have some scope for the market to move further up to actually test that line and then potentially push further down, right? Anyway, what else do we see now that we are on the daily chart of US30, aka Dow Jones? On the daily chart of US30, we can see that the market had given us this very nice W structure, which also had a neckline at that point. And guys, by now you know that whenever we have these kind of structures, we want to see the market push further down to where the neckline is. And generally speaking, where the neckline is where we look for those potential buying opportunities. So I'm just going to add a neckline for that W structure. And just to emphasize, remember that necklines are areas and not so much actual lines, right? So this neckline of this W structure is also a very strong level of support at this point in time, and should the market come back to this level from where it is, at this level we will look for those potential buying opportunities, right? And we will only buy if the market meets our conditions, right? Anyway, let's proceed. What else do we see on this chart? On this chart, I don't see much, but guys, as much as I'm saying that at this point we should potentially be looking for those buying opportunities, prospective buying opportunities, just bear in mind that on the weekly chart I spoke about how we have this very big W structure, and that my bias personally is for the market to push further down to around this level, which is in line with this level more or less, and that's where this particular M structure would end, in my humble opinion, right? Having said that, guys, remember I also spoke about this W structure, and that at this point over here where the neckline is, we might potentially look for those buying opportunities. The key to trading, guys, is predicting, or rather reacting, and not so much predicting, right? So we're gonna react based on what the market does, right? Anyway, let's proceed. So what else do we see on this chart? On this chart we can see that this W structure has actually played itself out. It actually started at this point more or less, and we can see that the market is already at this point. So we can say that the structure has played itself out, and chances are that we might see the market from where it is push further down, right, without actually coming to that line to test it. Why do I say so? That is because if you look at this area over here, we can see that the market is actually at a very strong level of resistance at the zone, and at this point we might potentially see a reversal of sorts, right? So let me just actually mark that zone, and just remember also that support and resistance are not lines, as I have it here. Support and resistance are not lines, they are areas. So you could say, in other words, that just for illustration purposes, this area over here is a very strong level of resistance. This area over here, right? That whole area over there, right? So it's not an actual line, but more an area. But just for keeping our charts clean, we'll just add a line at that point. And as I've said, guys, the anticipation is for the market to push further up to around this point to test this trend line, and at that point is where a lot of traders and investors will be looking for those selling opportunities, and a lot of them will take profit more or less at this level. Why do I say this level? That is because it's the neckline of this W structure, and it's also a very strong level of support, as you guys can see, right? Another thing that is also very much interesting and very important is that remember that whenever it comes to these W structures, a lot of traders and investors buy on that second leg of that W structure, and they place their stop loss just below. So there's a lot of money sitting at this point in the form of liquidity, and as much as I'm saying that your price come back to this level to test it, and that at this level we will look for potential buying opportunities, what may potentially also happen is that we may see price actually move all the way down to trigger all of those stop losses that are sitting in and around this area. Just keep that in the back of your mind as we go along. Anyway, from here what I'm going to do is head down to the H4 chart. Let's have a look. Here we are on the H4 chart. On the H4 chart, I'm just going to fix my channel once more. So there we go, more or less. There goes our daily channel. And on the H4 chart, I'm just going to start off by adding our H4 channel as well. So just bear with me, guys. How would I add my daily channel, or rather my H4 channel? I would do it in this manner. Just bear with me. Let's have a look. And we can see also that it is a very steep channel, and I don't like these kind of channels myself that are very steep, and that is because they are easily broken, they are easily violated. Yeah, and there we go, more or less. We could say that that's our H4 channel. And just to recap, guys, remember on the weekly chart we spoke about how we have that huge M structure, right? And we had price breaking to the bottom side of that neckline and then coming back to test the neckline, and unfortunately the neckline was not able to hold price, and we saw price move slightly up, right? And also remember that price is just about to test that channel that I spoke about, right? We're about to have a third touch somewhere at this point. It may happen or it may not happen. Either way, we're gonna have to react based on what the market does, right? Also remember that we spoke about how we have this W structure over here, which has a neckline at that point, and I said to you guys that we might potentially see the market push further down to around this area, and at this area we might look for those prospective buying opportunities, right? Another thing that I mentioned is that at this point in time the market is at a very strong level of resistance, and at this point we might potentially see price move further down to around this level, right? And also the last point is that because we have this W structure over here, we have a lot of stop losses that are stuck in this area, and that the market may actually push further down to grab all of those stop losses, because those stop losses are liquidity, and liquidity is actually money that needs to be triggered by the market at one point or another. I hope what I'm saying makes sense and it's not too confusing. Anyway, let's proceed. We're on the H4 chart of US30, which is also known as Dow Jones, and let's proceed, right? So let's just zoom in a bit and see what's happening on the H4 chart. What do we see on the H4 chart, guys? Remember, I mentioned that the market is at a very strong level of resistance, and at the zone we might get a reversal of sorts, right? Another thing that supports that we might get we might see price actually move further down is that we have, if you look closely, this M structure over here, and it has a neckline at that point. I hope you guys can see that. Let me just actually draw it properly. we have this M structure, and it has a neckline more or less at that point, and we can actually see that price or the market closed below the neckline, which is at that point, and we can see also that the market is heading up to test that neckline of this M structure, and at this point over here we might potentially look for those selling opportunities, or a lot of traders and investors are going to sell once price reaches that point. However, to be safe, I would say wait rather for the market to close below this area over here. Once it does so, you can look for those potential selling opportunities, and your take profit, in my humble opinion, should be this level over here, right? That is because, guys, if you sell at this point, the market may head down only to just bounce off of this trend line, only to push further up to around this level, which would give us a third touch on this trend line, and then only potentially move further down to around this point. So we just have to be careful, right? Anyway, let me just actually add a neckline for that smaller structure. Just bear with me, guys. There we go. That's the neckline of our M structure. Let me just zoom in a bit, and just to go over that section again, right? The M structure is here, right? And for newbies, guys, when it comes to trading, M structures are not always as perfect as they are in textbooks, right? Sometimes we have these type of M structures over here. It is still an M structure, and it's actually an overextended M structure because that first leg is much lower than that second leg. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see that, right? Nonetheless, it is a very nice M structure, and as I said, we might see price move all the way to the neckline, and at that point a lot of people will be selling. But the safest thing to do is actually to wait for the market to close below this channel, and then you can potentially look for those prospective selling opportunities, right? So that is it in as far as my analysis goes. I hope it makes sense. If you have any further questions or comments, just make them in the relevant section, and just remember to like and subscribe, and peace out, everybody.